Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Yay! And I guess we are all clapping because this is the first time we're in person again since 2019. We've all survived a lot. It's just amazing with the ENDURE programs or PIs and you as trainees have been able to do in between these 2 years. It's just really just amazing to see you all. And especially for some of the programs, not only have you dealt with the pandemic, but also storms and hurricanes. And so I just want to say from the NIH Blueprint, we are so thrilled to see you all in person today. And hopefully the programming that we have will do honor to you being here. So welcome to the 12th annual ENDURE meeting. Next slide. Oh, I can do it. Also, in these times, we want to be as inclusive as possible to people that were not able to travel. So just so you know, the first portion of this will be recorded and is streaming on Zoom. So we ask that when you do anything in terms of questions, to please use the mic so that the folks on Zoom will be able to hear you. And this is just our ENDURE roll call. Let's see, can I see? I can't see without my glasses. So Hunter, we were going to do like a wave. Hunter, Brooklyn.
Yeah.
We're cheering for everybody. Washington University, St. Louis. We have our Michigan State University. And then we have LSU. All right, we got 2 pages. This is exciting. And then we also have Temple University. We also have University of Puerto Rico. University of Nevada, Reno. UCSD. And then last but not least, University of Washington. And hopefully you see on the slides all of those institutions that I also didn't mention in terms of the partner institutions. So let's acknowledge them. And then also the T32s, they'll be coming a little bit later for the recruitment fair, 35, all right. 30, and I've already sort of stepped on my next slide. 35 neuroscience PhD graduate programs are participating in the grad fair this year. That is the most that we've ever had. And as I always say every year, as trainees, you have to know that they are very excited to recruit you. There's no reason to wake up this early on a Saturday unless they are really interested in recruiting your talent. By the numbers, we also have 238 people participating in the meeting today. 95 ENDURE scholars will be presenting at the diversity poster session tonight at 6:30. 135 ENDURE alumni are now in biomedical or clinical doctoral programs. Yes, we have to clap for that. And in terms of the alum, 37 ENDURE alum actually have biomedical or clinical degrees. And this is still a very, you can clap. This is still a young program, but we are already seeing, the vision become a reality. We have ENDURE scholars who are now D-SPAN scholars. And so the NIH Blueprint, we're really excited by the investment, but we also, for you trainees, it's a visible pathway that you can see from scholars that were just like you sitting in the seat that are already at those next steps. So just realize that there is a space and a place for you, and that we need you is the important message. So for this meeting, we'll start off. I've already done the meeting goals. Then we have 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 institute directors here. And today I don't know why they did it. I warned them, but they have agreed to answer anything you ask them. So, so think now, the hard-hitting questions. We want real journalism here. And then Dr. Felicia Jefferson will give the keynote, and then we'll have a panel on pathways and perspectives. So for some really talented early career trainees. And then we'll open it up to the recruitment fair, which is really the heart of this, is getting you on your pathway to your next step. All right, so with that, we'll start with the Ask Me Anything. Use the mics in the middle of the aisle to ask your questions. And like I said, this should be hard-hitting. It should be hard-hitting questions. And we'll start by having these illustrious institute directors introduce themselves, but then also tell us about the mission of their institutes. So we'll start with Dr. Chang.
Michelle, thank you. I'm Michael Chang. I'm director of the National NIH Institute, and I've been here for about 2 years, and so that makes me a very new institute director. So the reason that I'm at SFN is that there's such a big part of neuroscience that deals with vision and visual information processing. And one of the first things that I did when I started 2 years ago was we came up with a mission statement, and it's to eliminate vision loss and improve quality of life through vision research. And it happened, it took 6 months to come up with that one little phrase. And I think that there's 4 bullet points in terms of how we do that. And one of those 4 bullet points is to recruit, inspire, and train a talented and diverse new generation to strengthen the vision workforce. And this is really important to us, and that's why we're really here. And the last, I guess the last thing I'll say is that in Ask Me Anything over 20 minutes, it's just not enough time to convey what we really do. If you're on social media, we've been trying to use social media to disseminate information. And I feel ridiculous trolling for followers.
It's okay.
But it's NEI Director on Twitter. And the reason is that we try to put information out on grant opportunities. And I know Josh and Walter also have really strong social media presence. So really excited to be here.
Thank you. Dr. Gordon, who has this distinction of being an IC director who actually had an ENDURE alum in his lab, I believe.
Yep. So I'm Joshua Gordon, Director of National Institute of Mental Health. Actually, one of my postdocs is a faculty member at Hunter, and Katya Lichtek. Maybe some of you know her. Yeah, we love Katya. So we've got at NIMH our vision is also a vision in which a world in which mental illnesses are prevented and cured. And we recognize in order to do that, we need to support a broad range of research from very basic neuroscience, such as what you'll see represented here, all the way through to clinical and services research. And an important component of that, just like Michael mentioned for us, is workforce development and ensuring a diverse workforce. And I've been a big supporter of ENDURE since I got here 6 years ago. I had the pleasure of speaking to your predecessors about 5 years ago at one of these, and it's really wonderful to join you today, and I look forward to seeing some of you at the poster session later today. I'll add one more thing. I'd imagine this is all your first Society for Neuroscience meeting. Well, you're years ahead of me. My first Society Neuroscience meeting was my first year as a grad student. I remember sleeping on the floor of a hotel room in Anaheim, California. But for those of you who haven't been here yet, you're in for a real treat. Enjoy the week. It is just so much fun. There's so much information. It can feel overwhelming at times, but just go to the things that you care about, that you like, and enjoy them.
Thank you. All right, last but not least, especially since he pays me, Dr. Koroshetz.
Not enough, though, as you know.
I know.
Yeah, so I'm Walter. I'm the director of the Neurologic Institute, and like the others, our mission is to advance understanding, this case of the nervous system, and to use that knowledge to reduce the suffering due to neurological diseases and stroke. And so again, very broad. I think most of the institutes, when they look at that eventual goal line of advancing health in their different areas, see that the the reason we can't get there is because we really don't know how the system works. And so our manipulations fall short most of the time, and people don't do well because of that. So, we are the taxpayers' investment in biomedical research to kind of get to that end goal. People may or may not know that neuroscience receives more money at NIH than any other area of science. And also looking at PhD programs, neuroscience PhD programs are way ahead of any other area of science. So our field is exploding, but the problems and the complexities of the problems are really quite dramatic. And so we need really smart people to kind of break through some of these barriers, because here at NIH, we don't actually do the work. We're basically a granting institution to other people who are out there who are going to take on this mission and try and solve some of the problems. And if all of us at NIH and the Blueprint for Neuroscience realize that to get really smart people, we got to put our feelers out everywhere, give everybody a chance to see what this kind of career is like. And the hope is that we can hook people to do this for their life as their career, because it really does make a difference. So happy to be here today.
Thank you. So we can start the clock, and please come to the center to ask your questions. I guess I'll start off by asking, in terms of where they're sitting now, what was the best piece of advice you received during your training that you wish someone would have told you sooner? Can we start with you, Dr. Chang?
There's a lot of pieces of advice that I wish I knew sooner. But let me try to say one, just because you're at a big meeting right now. And the piece of advice would be reach out to people. You need mentors at every level. And when I finished my training, I thought I was going to be grown up and trained, but that's not really true. There are always people who are going to be helping you out, no matter what level you're at. And this meeting is a great place to find people who are like that. Like when I was at your level, I used to always think meetings were about hanging out with the people that I already knew. We'd go to the beach, we'd do stuff, but it's a way to find people who are just like you, but working in other parts of the country. And I got my first job from meeting someone at one of these meetings. And when you're young, you'd reach out to people who are often very busy. Like some of these people have to be in two places at the same time, and sometimes common scenarios that you'll reach out to someone and they'll say, well, why don't you come talk to me after my talk? And you've got 2 minutes, with this huge pile of people, and they're running away somewhere else. But don't feel discouraged if that happens, because I've been on both ends of that, and you'd be surprised how many times you can make connections that way. So just take advantage of being at meetings.
That's great advice. Josh?
Do lots of experiments and do what you love. Those are two things that I try to tell everybody.
Walter?
Yeah, I follow up on what Josh said. The great thing about a science career is you get to choose what you do, which is pretty rare. And we kind of gave up some of that. We do what we're told by other
Congress.
people, like Congress. But yeah, so as Josh said, the great thing about science is you can find something you really love to do, and you can become an expert, and you can start contributing. And that's, I think that's where you get that sense of fulfillment. So I think that's the main thing. I guess the only second thing I'd say is that you have, as you get into this, you have to keep your eyes and ears open for opportunities. Because you go in with a plan, like I call Plan A. And my message that I learned, no one told me, but I think I learned it, is that Plan B was often better than Plan A. So don't put all your money on, if I don't do this, I feel like a failure, and I got to go do something else. I mean, have a whole bunch of things that you pathways you can go depending on how things work out. But they're all kind of in that same mission area. So what you love to do, somebody told me once, what you got to do is find out what you love to do, and then you got to figure out who's going to pay you to do it. So, but there's many ways of getting paid to do what you love to do in science. Yeah.
That's also great advice.
If you don't ask us questions, we're going to start asking you questions.
I know. Come on. It's early, but come on. Yay!
Hi, my name is Nancy. I'm from Hunter. A lot of us, I think, just applied for the NSF, and so something that I sort of was wondering as I was applying was, how do you balance wanting to do cutting edge research that's novel and exciting and sort of risky with the feasibility of those projects?
Great question.
I think, Walter hit on it with the Plan A, Plan B, and Katya will tell you this if you talk to her about it. Everyone in my lab has that built into their primary project. They have like something that's going to work out, and something that, if it does work out, be really cool, but might not, right? And so now that's from a science planning perspective. Grant making is a whole different perspective. You kind of want to emphasize the thing that will work out and say that it's going to be really cool. But really what you want to do when you're doing your experiments is like take some risks and have a backup.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi there, thank
Nancy,
you.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Nancy, if I can comment on when I was younger, I used to think that it was really important to come up with that breakthrough and change the world with one thing. And one thing that I've sort of recognized as I've gotten a little bit older is that a lot of times that's not the way things work. That breakthroughs are really a lot of little incremental things that you do that build up to a big story that you tell, that sometimes can take a whole career to do that. And so my advice would be not to feel frustrated that you don't feel like that grant is going to be earth shattering, because things do happen gradually.
Hi there, thanks so much for spending your time here with us. Related to that past question, as you guys developed in your career, have you developed a framework that you use to approach new questions? And what are some of the things you learned throughout your career to, attack those problems that you wish you knew earlier?
So my framework is to recruit people like you to do it. No, quite seriously. When I was, so I started my lab, I knew all about neurophysiology and nothing about optogenetics, which was emerging at the time. And so I had a really wonderful grad student, Tim Spellman, who spent 3 years failing to get optogenetics up and running, and then the 4th year it did. And so every new thing in my lab anyway has been pioneered by a trainee, right, like you all. And so we rely on your courage to be able to try new things and to get things to work. And a part of that also, and this was true also in Tim's case, is it's also about collaboration, right? So Tim didn't just invent it out of thin air, right? He spent time in several different labs around us that were doing it and learned from them. So brave trainees and collaboration.
Anyone else?
I actually have a comment very similar to Josh's, that one of the favorite parts of my week used to always be a 2-hour conference call we had every single week, where there were scientists, engineers, doctors, and we talked for 2 hours about our results and where we would go. And I thought it was awesome to have people from different perspectives look at the same problem and ask some of those questions. And so much new stuff came out of that. And I would say that that's actually one reason that we're really trying to push diversity, because I think it leads to better science. When you get people from different backgrounds, a scientist and engineer sees the world differently, and two people who grew up differently also see the world differently. And I think that's one thing that I really want out of our scientific world.
Great
Just make
point.
one point.
Yes.
Just want to add what Josh said about the optogenetics. So I'm not sure if everybody's going to agree with this, but I've always looked to see what the next tool is going to be to break through. And so as a young person, the old people are not going to be the ones who come in with the new tool. It's going to be the young people. So one strategy is to think about the area of science you're interested in. What is the next tool that's going to be helpful? Become expert in that. Then you really bring something to the table. So sometimes that works, but yeah.
Hi, I'm Justin from WashU, and I was wondering if you guys ever had a moment where your research interests shift to something that was maybe slightly different than what it was, and it's something I'm thinking about since I'm going to be going into rotations, and that's a thing that could come up.
Well, I'm like the poster child for switching. So, yeah, and that's where I got into, I mean, this idea of the plans and what you like to do. And, it changes over time. I really loved doing experiments, but then when I had my own lab, I couldn't do the experiments. I didn't really like it that much. So I switched. So I switched from basic to clinical. And even in the clinical space, it was set up by the basic research I'd done, but then there were new tools that came on, like I said before, from the clinical side, so it allowed me to kind of do experiments in people. And so that's a big shift. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. So my mentor, who was the chair, basically said, and I wouldn't advise you to do this, but although I kind of did, that every 10 years you should do something different. So, and kind of reinvent yourself. And then you can do that. I mean, you can't do that in most jobs, but you can do that in science.
When I was young, I always thought that I would find what I love doing and then go for it. And I have to say that's not exactly what happened in my life. I thought when I was a kid, I wanted to be an engineer, and that was actually my major in college. And then when I was in medical school, I thought I wanted to be a brain surgeon, and then I ended up becoming an eye doctor. And what was common about that is that I met people who really inspired me to do something else, because they taught me something or I learned something from them and wanted to be, do what they were doing. And that changed a few times. And so I guess what I took away, or what my life experience, and this is just my opinion, and so none of these things are facts, that you're hearing, that I actually have gotten to feel that the people you meet are just as important as the topics you study, and so just for what that's worth. So I wouldn't be afraid about that uncertainty.
That's a great point.
Go Bears.
All right, we have like 4 minutes and we have 4 people, so we're going to do a lightning round, and we'll just do it to one IC director per question. Go.
Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Penelope Hurtado Stewart from the University of Arizona. And my question is, so I'm an undergraduate, I'm a junior, and I have a lot of topics that I'm really interested in and questions. For example, I'm really interested in cognitive linguistics and linguistic disorders and acquisition. And what I'm wondering as I begin to apply to grad schools is, how do you decide the level at which to ask that question? Because that can be asked at the molecular genetic level, that could be studied using methods like EEG and fMRI, and I don't know kind of what level to select. So how do you make a decision like that?
So I said earlier, do lots of experiments. I didn't just mean experiments in the lab, right? So do rotations in 3 different labs that do very, very different things and see what you enjoy doing, right? And then also, you might do that for your graduate work and then decide, I want to move up a level or down a level for my postdoc or whatever. So I would say experiment and see what drives your curiosity, what gets you up in the morning, and go based on that.
Thank you so much.
All right, next person.
Hello, my name is David Melendez. I'm from UCSD Start Neuro, and my question is directed more specifically towards Dr. Joshua Gordon. I'm curious, what do you think of the current state of effectiveness for drug treatment for like mental illness? So like things like Zoloft or antidepressant, for like how effective they are. And where do you think the field is heading towards in like the drug-related treatment for mental illness?
All right, so I'll do that quickly. One, the answer is modest. They're modestly effective, but definitively effective. Number two, where is it heading? I think there are two things. One is we're really looking for novel mechanistic targets for treatments, of course, across all illnesses, but then also we're looking for targeted treatments. So figuring out ways we can stratify patients who might be more likely to respond better to one treatment than another, and that may lead to efficacy increases without actually the need for novel therapies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joyce Malandu, and I'm from the University of Maryland. And my question is more so about the institutes. So what steps have you guys been taking to like address the, oh, I forgot the word. It's okay. Health disparities, especially in mental health and neurological disorders, and what steps do you guys think you guys are going to take in the future to close that gap? Do you want to take that, Walter?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really hard problem in this country because of the way our healthcare system's put together. But we do mount research projects to try to figure out ways to attack health disparities. I'm very favored on trying to work with healthcare systems in that kind of research so they can move from not just a paper published, but actually improvement in the healthcare.
I would also say, take a look at the COMPASS program. It's an NIH-wide Common Fund program that's just starting. It's an example of the kind of ways that we're working on trying to attack health disparities. COMPASS, COMPASS.
Thank you. Last question.
Hi, I'm Carrie. I'm part of WashU ENDURE, and I'm a senior at Mount Holyoke College, and I'm about to apply for jobs after. I definitely want to get my PhD, but I want to take a break of being a student before I go straight into it. And so the NIH postbac, I think called the IRTA, is really like impressive. And I just wanted some advice on how to like contact PIs there to like hopefully get a spot in their lab.
So I get these emails all the time. Cold email PIs and tell them you're interested in. What we do is we keep a list of all the people who've emailed us. And then come January, when most applications are in, we go through the applications and we pay attention. We look at lots of applications, but we definitively look at the people who've emailed us. So I might send a really quick response saying, thanks, we'll get back to you in January if we're interested. That's why, because that's what we're doing. We're looking at those. So that's just cold email people. Look at the institutes in the areas that you're interested in. Look at the list of investigators and email the ones that excite you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to really thank all three of you. This was wonderful. Just as we're running out of time, it started to get going. Just real quick, lightning round, favorite brain area.
I'm at the Eye Institute. It's the retina.
Oh, I thought we were going to get you called out here. Okay, Josh.
Medial prefrontal cortex, of course.
Woo! Walter, what do you got?
I love all parts of my brain.
Oh, so inclusive. All right. Thank you all. Thank you for coming.
Where's the Brooklyn College group? Is there a Brooklyn College group here? All right, we should chat. I'm from.
Yeah, we'll have to get a selfie with Brooklyn. All right. So thank you. Next up, we're going to have a keynote address from Dr. Felicia Jefferson. I'll just tell you a little bit about her. Her bio is in the program booklet. You should have all received the link for that. But Dr. Jefferson holds a BS in biotechnology and German language from RIT. She also has an MS in molecular genetics and biochemistry from Georgia State University and a PhD in neuroscience and biomedical science from Morehouse School of Medicine. And that's where I met Felicia many years ago. She also has been very active in terms of serving on the National Science Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine boards in terms of contributing to many of their reports. and then also being a part of the American Society for Engineering Education Board of Directors and Artificial Intelligence and Sleep Medicine Committee. So I won't go on because she's going to tell you a lot about her science and also her path in her talk. So let's welcome Dr. Jefferson to the stage. And you can just advance.
Thank you, Dr. Jones-London. My slides. Here we go. So all of the NIH program directors gave you information that's all true, very, very important for your career. Mentorship is extremely important. Having a program like ENDURE is extremely important. But being at the Society for Neuroscience meeting, I remember being here some years ago, long time ago, and came as a grad student, came as a postdoc, came when I was junior faculty. Ensure that many of my students get to come and present as well. But this opportunity to meet many people at the meeting, you really need to take advantage of it. If there's somebody that you're potentially interested in working with, please go and talk to them, because this is where you meet people who are very important to your future. Also, your network, the people that you're here with, the students that you're here with, it's extremely important that you stay connected with them. You'll meet people along the way. The other points that were made, I know Walter had some points and Josh had some points, particularly about career. You'll see in the career path that I have how I got where I got, but the different projects that I worked on, different things that I did, different trajectories, engineering and things of that nature. So, but I'd like to start by thanking the NIH, NINDS. Thank you so very much for the invitation, BP ENDURE, Dr. Michelle Jones-London for this invitation. And I do think that there is a timekeeper. And full disclosure, I am a professor, so I do like to talk, and especially like to talk about the subjects that I'm very interested in. And sometimes, unless someone stops, I think someone will, right? Yeah. Okay. We can go on, but. So, as many of you are, I am a first-generation college graduate. So there were a lot of people who contributed to my success. My mom, although she never graduated from college, she was very, very adamant about our educational focus. My sister and I, she made sure that we got the best education possible within the public school system. Yesterday was Veterans Day, so can't go without saying thank you to my dad, who retired from military service after many, many, many decades of service. But it was also, thank you, it was also the opportunities to travel where we got many, many opportunities to look at the world in a different way. My laboratory, I'll give you some background on that, mostly because of the students that are there and the excellent pathways that they are now on. Some of them have gotten their PhDs already. They've gotten their MDs. They've gone on to do great things. I'm also going to talk about my research, what is neuroscience and how we focus mostly on sleep and integrate that within neuroengineering technologies development. And then I'll talk about the relationship with the BP ENDURE program. Okay, so my education, I know Dr. Jones-London mentioned some of it. Rochester Institute of Technology, where I got my degree in biotechnology. I was very interested in genetic engineering, and before there was a biomedical engineering degree, this was biotechnology. So I did a lot of that. You couldn't pass certain classes with an A unless you could clone lymphocytes. So hybridoma techniques, we had to clone a lymphocyte in that class in order to get an A, which I was able to do, and just really loved the work. One of the things I knew I wanted to become was a scientist. I went on, got my master's degree at Georgia State University, but I want to talk especially about my doctoral degree mentors, Dr. Katema Paul. He was an assistant professor at the time at Morehouse School of Medicine. He is now a full professor at UCLA. He's gotten a number of R1 grants from NINDS. And so his mentorship was integral to my success. Along, you can see Dr. Christopher Aylan. He's at Morehouse School of Medicine. For my postdoctoral training, Dr. Kyra Clark, she was the director of the Sleep Center at the time at Morehouse School of Medicine. She's now in Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona specifically, and then Dr. Donald Blauwise. So he does a lot of restless leg syndrome research. Wesley Woods Geriatric Center at the Emory University campus, that is where the Aging Center is located. That is where the Sleep Center was located at the time. I believe it's moved since then, but I keep in contact with each of these people. They are people that you will keep with you lifelong moving on. Doing rotations are extremely important, making sure that you're conducting research that you like. This is going to be integral for your success because you will keep a lot of the lessons that you learn in those graduate programs, in your postdoctoral positions with you. Somebody asked about industry, and I'm not sure who it was, but I will tell you, before I went to go get my doctoral degree, I did work in industry, and I loved industry. And I did really appreciate working for some top-tier corporations, okay? Bausch & Lomb, P&G. I was doing more toxicogenomics, so getting the opportunity to work on products that are now on the market was very, determining the safety and efficacy was extremely beneficial. It was a wonderful opportunity. I also worked as a staff scientist at another corporation, Schering-Plough, which Merck, they ended up buying them some years later. But, testing for drug targets and materials, constant G protein coupled receptors, you get many, many opportunities. You get paid very, very, very well. But why I came back, being able to get paid well, looking at the results of the projects that you work on, extremely exciting, great pathway. But for me, the reason why I came back to academia was the opportunity, like Walter said, to pretty much do what you would like to do as a researcher, right? And again, this is one of the few fields where you can do that. A lot of people have corporations. Some of my colleagues, they have businesses, small businesses that they have submitted grants to NIH for. And so you get the opportunity to investigate areas that you're really interested in over and over and over. And you keep up with the latest journal articles. So it takes you to a point where lots of things become novel, and you're consistently keeping up with that information. So my academic background, it was mentioned, I started out at Spelman College, so I know Dr. Gordon mentioned he had a student who was there who eventually got the optogenetics in his lab working, so I'm sure she went on to do great things. But after Spelman, and somebody else said, and I think it was somebody up here on the panel, one of the directors mentioned that who you know, locality sometimes. I went to Spelman because it was across the street from Morehouse School of Medicine. It was easy access. There were also people there that I knew, and when an opportunity became available, I was there to be able to take on that opportunity. So it was a great opportunity, great place to be. I then went on to Fort Valley State University, particularly because they're a land grant institution. One of the things that a lot of people may not mention are the values of land grant institutions. Rural institutions provide a lot of pathways and opportunities for first-generation college students, and in areas that are likely, well, from the at least National Science Foundation information, under-researched, okay? So there's a lot of opportunity there. My research collaborators, and I have quite a few of them, I'll talk to you a little bit about that, but I also have research appointments at the University of Texas at Arlington in an engineering lab, as well as at Boston University as a part of the CellMet ERC that's there. Scholarship and research, and I think Walter mentioned this, you gotta be able to fund the research that you do, and you have to have all of that connected. There were some tips that were given up here by two of the directors at least I heard mention it, but you've gotta be able to fund the research that you do. Dr. Michelle Jones-London, I know her very well because she funded me when I was a graduate student, NINDS. What you learn, particularly with BP ENDURE, programs such as these, when you're successful in these are the students who go on to do very well, get F31s, get F32s as postdocs, and eventually get your first R01. So there's a pipeline that's developed. You need to stick with the people that you meet here. It's extremely important to your success. And collaborators. So many of my collaborators, Dr. Eric Jones, he's taken on an administrative position at University of Nevada, Reno. Dr. Wei Chen, he's coming up to with an administrative position. And Dr. Melody Goodwin, she is at NYU. She is full professor, now an associate dean for research. So I have additional collaborators, but what you'll notice when people start climbing up into administrative positions, they don't always continue on that research path. And I think Walter mentioned that as well. You now do some of the things that you're told to do, but it's very fun to just stay as a full professor doing the research that you would like to do. So my background, you saw the degrees that I had, the industry experience that I had. That has allowed me to be a neurobiologist within neuroscience. So I have toxicology background. I have environmental science background, right? I have this perspective and the technology background when I am conducting my research. The ideals that I come up with and the projects that people in my lab tend to work on tend to encompass much of this. It's a convergent research process. I'm very interested in connecting all my work, right? So from the basic biological science research that we do in the lab, from using invertebrate models to using vertebrate models in the mice, which we've done as well, to using some of that information and data to conduct some of our research in humans. This is what I've been interested in for pretty much a decade now. And this is what we try to do in my lab. So many of the students who are in my lab, I have a number of graduate students and PhD students, and I also have a lot of undergraduates. Many of them, we've got a nuclear engineering program, we've got biotechnology, we've got biology. They are doing amazing things. They take full advantage of going to meetings such as SFN. Many of the other meetings in our area that our students attend include SLEEP, ASEE, there's a number of conferences that I like them to be able to attend. When you have the opportunity, please make sure that you do submit your abstracts. You do try to present as much as possible, because again, these are the people who you will meet at these conferences who will help you with your career. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the major focus of my lab, which is sleep, okay? So you may know a little bit about this, but those of you who do not do research in sleep, you don't know as much, okay? So we look at different EEG and EMG measures of sleep in our lab. Okay? We do research in Drosophila, in mice, and we also do some minor clinical research, but most of that is with our collaborators because they have medical schools. Non-REM sleep, well, may or may not know, There are 3 stages of non-REM sleep. Non-REM 1, stage 1 is the first one that you go into immediately following, as soon as you fall asleep, okay? There's a stage 1 of non-REM sleep, but we're mostly interested in stage 3, which is slow wave sleep. That is what's considered the deep wave sleep. That is where you have the high Hertz frequencies that are slowly oscillating, okay? So you've got slow measures that go across because you're in very deep, deep sleep, but you have the very high Hertz frequencies along the EMG line, okay? This, in comparison to REM sleep, you'll have shorter waves, okay, but much more frequent, okay? So you've got much more higher frequency waves. They show up more often, okay, but the lengths are shorter. You also have eye movement, right? Rapid eye movement, so named. So you'll see some muscle movement in the EMG there. Many of you may or may not know this, especially you're all young, right? So you do wake up, but your awakenings are very short, okay? You've got these very short awakenings very often. If you're sleeping well, you don't even notice them, right? That's probably going to change as you age. We've seen this as you age. This changes very often, especially in women, but that's a different, I do conduct a lot of research focusing on women and women's sleep, but it changes, just to say that. And of course, the way that an individual sleep changes over the lifespan. But you do have these small little increments of wake that occur, very short increments, hopefully. It looks comparative to the rapid eye movement, except you do have more muscle movement, and the stages are little smaller Hertz frequency. So I mentioned that I do have research appointments at University of Texas Arlington within engineering and at Boston U, so with their ERC. So I'm just going to show you some of the projects that not only we've collaborated on, but many of the students in my lab have worked on. One has to do with the potential to propagate astrocyte growth, okay? So you'll see some of these astrocytes here. All we did was basically seed these along an RFID chip, right? RFID is very low frequency in an attempt to try to propagate some of the astrocytes. We wanted to see what the biological results would be. Would there be any damage? How long would these cells last? Because again, this is in cell culture, just seeding the astrocytes along here. What would happen here, right? And so this goes back to my toxicology background, but if there is a potential to propagate the growth of astrocytes or other neural cells, this could potentially be used in very minor, very small, one little part with cognitive decline, improvement there, okay? But very small project that we're working on right now in collaboration with other researchers, something that our students got to work on this summer. The other project that you see here, we sent 9 students up to Boston University. And you can see right here this MEMS, okay? This is used for magnetic field detection, okay? Now, why would we use this instead of using an EKG, right? The EKG measures electrical pulses. One's non-invasive, right? One requires wireless access, right? And if you're trying to get signals and you're trying to get information here without having to implant or do any EKG measures that require wired access, you need a way to do that in a wireless mechanism. This would be a part of a process that's been proposed to kind of try to measure these signals in the cloud, upload this information, get it into the cloud. So you don't have to be on site for some of these measurements to be made, and that's one of the tools that we've been working on at the CellMed ERC. So I'm going to skip through because I see I'm running out of a bit of time, and I kind of had an idea that would happen. So I just put some things here because I just put some things here, some of the projects that we've been working on in my lab. I'll skip through a bit. With our Drosophila model, we're looking at the effects of aging, differences in sex, possible cognitive decline effects. And this is our Drosophila models, DAM units that we do there. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the undergraduate projects that we've worked on previously. A lot that do deal with health disparities. They deal with locality of the institution where people live, and they also deal with projects that seem to overly affect underrepresented groups, okay? One of them had, well, a few of them actually looked at the waterways. Some of these were done at Spelman. Some of these have been done and continued at Fort Valley State University. Toxicity-related projects, food and nutritional analysis. A lot of these look at endocrine disrupting chemicals. Fort Valley State University, not the university itself, but portions of that area are a Superfund site from the EPA. So you have toxins and contaminants there. Another project that we've been looking at is, despite all of the farms that are in the Fort Valley area, as a rural area, it's still considered a food desert. That's because many of the products are shipped out of state because they get a much larger profit if they're shipped out of state, as opposed to being within the community. I really came here to talk about the trainees that we have, right? We've got a lot of research that goes on. We have a lot of projects, but the trainees are the heart of what we do, right? AVRCAMS is going on, just went on last week. We were at the one previously in 2019, and I do want to point out two students here. They were undergraduates at the time of AVRCAMS 2019, and you can see them if you look at the top center picture. You can see that AVRCAMS 2019 picture. Two of those students, they are now both graduate students doing excellent work. One also works as a lab manager. You can see them to the right, okay? Here's some of our collaborators that we work with. The picture in the center, you can see faculty, junior faculty that we mentored, as well as a senior faculty member, Ed. But in the background, one of my undergraduate students, and this is a workshop that we had in April of this year. You can also see down at the bottom that I am doing some recruitment for our STEM fair they have at the Air Force Base. We have an Air Force Base in Warner Robins that we work with, particularly on our computer science and artificial technology projects. We also have some of our students, they also participate in the CMAT ERC, which is at Georgia Tech, and you can see them in that top left corner there. Very often we visit and speak to a lot of the faculty there and do some collaborative research. Here's a lab meeting you can see in the bottom left corner. Joy, she recently went on to a PhD program, so she is in neuroscience at a closer university. So she's working on her PhD. She was getting her MPH there. And Chandria, who is on the left, she is now employed in a STEM-based job. You also can see some of our research, some of our equipment, as well as some of the people we work with. Shannon, who is down in the bottom, has a faculty position at a primarily undergraduate institution in Texas. And Gohar, he is in a faculty position at University of Buffalo. Some program officers who were in attendance at one of our workshops that we had this year. So one of the things, and I know most of the mentors, most of the BP ENDURE mentors that you all have, they are well aware of this, but the importance of student success, okay? The importance of mentorship. And again, this was mentioned, but recruitment from a variety of different areas. My institution, again, primarily undergraduate teaching, undergraduate institution, a rural institution. There are quite a few students who are first generation college students simply because they live in rural areas and they come from rural areas to come to the institution. So BP ENDURE, I know you all are doing a wonderful, wonderful job. I do want to say thank you because again, had I not had the mentors that I had, I would not be able to build up with some of the collaborations that I had, but excellent students. Sometimes you'll have students who may be struggling in one area, and if that's you, you may be struggling in one area. It doesn't mean you can't do what you want by getting the mentorship you need to help you to improve in the courses that you need the most help with, okay? But I think a lot of you are excellent students. I do think collaborations with more minority serving institutions, HBCUs, do an excellent job at getting students exposed to undergraduate research. And a lot of times you don't hear about that. Faculty, including myself, have these very, very high teaching loads, but have been very effective at incorporating the research that we do into the classes that we teach, allowing students to get an opportunity for exposure. Those are my final comments. If you have any questions, the microphone is right here. Thank you. And it looks like I'm over time, but
question because your research is so exciting and really incorporates a lot of disciplines. Are you recruiting now?
I'm always recruiting, so we are always recruiting. We do have funds, and most of my research funding comes from National Science Foundation. I heard someone mention that they just finished applying for the GRFP, and so yeah, winners of GRFP, we talked about the pipeline. They tend to go on to eventually get a career award and to go and get all these other awards. But knowledge of the opportunities that are available, I didn't know what the GRFP award was until I became a faculty member. So the fact that you're able to participate in a program like this, make sure you're taking full advantage of all the opportunities that are presented to you, all the programs that are available. There are a lot out there. And you notice one of the directors mentioned that there are new programs that are coming up. So you have to really look, stick with it, find out what's available. If there's something that you're particularly interested in, I'm sure that you can find something related to it so that you can do it. But I'm always recruiting.
Let's see the person coming, rounding the corner. Oh, two. So say your name and your institution.
Yes.
From the University of Puerto Rico, and I wanted to ask you, apart from programs like ENDURE, how have you dealt with misconceptions about your knowledge coming from a misrepresented background in both the industry and academia? Because I know it's really hard for some of us students that come from places that are not as well known in academia to sort of gain that respect from other institutions. So how have you dealt with that throughout your career?
So very often, and I'll tell you, hopefully things will change. You do deal with some of that, but when people see your work, what can they say, right? When people see the things that you do, it usually quells some of the worries. And very often people are receptive to wanting to work with you when they see your work. I will tell you, you always want to present your best foot forward, moving from there. And You often find, depending on the institutions that you are at, in the U.S. News and World Report rankings, there is often a bias on how well people believe that you can perform. But the truth of the matter is, you've got the top 10% at any institution that they tend to go on to do great things. You have some people who are at top institutions who may not do so well, and you show your work is what I would say. Show your work. I make sure that we publish at least 2 to 3 papers a year. We make sure in our lab we're getting those papers out. I tend to publish with a lot of undergraduate authors because I know the importance of getting papers published for your career. You know, when you're applying for GRFP, they want to see how many publications you have. You presented at conferences, but how are you competitive with others? And there's a lot of people at top tier institutions that don't always come out with papers as undergraduates. So show your work would be what I would say. Thank you so much for that question.
Hi, Ryan Henry from CUNY Hunter. Thank you so much for the talk. I had a sleep question, actually. So I know sleep has been implicated in a lot of psychological ailments and just more ailments in general. Is there a specific ailment that you think insights into sleep will translate into better outcomes into the future in the next couple of years?
So that's such a broad question. There has been a lot found with not only the way individuals sleep, but sleep, what we call sleep hygiene, right? The best thing that most people can do tends to be change the way that they sleep, improve the way that they sleep, create conditions in the bedrooms, you know, for sleeping. The problem that this generation, I think you all may have this a little more, blue light at night, right? All the technology, you fall asleep on your laptop, televisions are on. It makes it very difficult for melatonin to be released. It makes it very difficult to actually be able to fall asleep. And so the latency to sleep, and much of the research that we're seeing is increasing. It's always been a little higher in women, and I could talk a little bit about that with regards to baseline sleep in both men and women and males and females in general. But there's been this disparity between men and women, but we're now starting to see there's a lot of men who they have this latency, you know, the time it takes to go to sleep is increasing as well. Artificial light at night, we've seen this in wildlife and in animals. There's this disruption that you can see that's occurring that previously wasn't taking place. With regards, because I think you mentioned psychology as well, right? And mental illness, I think a lot of people are picking up on the fact that sleep is so integral to improvement of many of the conditions. And the DSM-5, the DSM-4 has been, you know, arranged to where now you can see that sleep not only is or alterations in sleep, fragmented sleep, is not only a issue from different mood disorders, but the way someone sleeps can actually lead to some of these conditions as well. So you're starting to see that people are picking up on much of the impact of sleep and how it affects individuals. As far as any new developments, not necessarily any new drugs that I've seen that have recently been extremely effective per se in improving sleep. I'm only focused on sleep, not focused on the mood disorders component. But it's a whole system physiology, so it's difficult to treat, but thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, this is the hard part of the job where I got to be the bad guy. But I'm making your fan club. At the end of this panel, we'll incorporate questions for Dr. Jefferson into that as well. If we have time, we're going to stay respectful.
Please do get my phone number and my email address because I'm leaving after this. I have to take a plane. Yep.
Are you staying till the end of this?
So
What time are you leaving?
Yep, right after my talk here, and then I've got to go catch a flight. So, but please do take down the information because I wanted to be here for this. So.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dr. Jefferson.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. And now I'd like to welcome to the stage the amazing Dr. Marguerite Matthews, who will take over the moderation of the next session.
Thank you all. Good morning. It's so amazing to see you all. I'm sure you know my name, at least from being bombarded by many emails. It is so beautiful to see you all in person in 3D. Many of you have gotten a chance to hug. So I'm gonna have my panelists come up as I introduce them. But this next panel session is really a chance, yep, you guys can come on up right now. Yep. A chance for you to hear from folks who've been where you are, who had an opportunity to take part in a summer research program. And now they're doing really fantastic things, whether they're in graduate school or already about to go onto the faculty market. And so they're going to tell you about themselves, their journey, and their science. But you'll see them as brilliant scientists, but also as people, right? They have a life. They do things outside of the lab. And so hopefully you'll glean more information about what your life might look like if you continue on in a research career. So I'll let them introduce themselves, but I feel very fortunate to know each of them in some capacity. Two I met for the first time in person, but have been following their careers for a long time. And so I think you'll be just as excited as I am to hear from each of them. But we have Yesenia Garcia Cifuentes. We have yes, an ENDURE alum, one of you all, and the very, very, very recently minted Dr. Celis Hayes, who defended on Tuesday. We have Dr. Stephanie Noble, who is one of our D-spanners, and she'll tell you more about that program as time goes on. And also a new K99 winner. And last but not least, my official neuroscience mentee, Dr. Corey White, also who we've had in our NINDS portfolio for quite some time and can also tell you a little bit about the D-span program. So they'll each give their talks, and then we'll save all questions for the panelists at the very end.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. My name is Yesenia, and I am going to be sharing my declassified graduate school survival guide. So I will be sharing my personal journey throughout neuroscience and also like weaving in some lessons learned along the way. And I think some of the graphics might have gotten messed up a little bit. So if you see that, that wasn't me. But yeah. So this is me as a baby undergrad, but now I'm currently a third-year PhD candidate at Emory University. And I am a very proud alum of the ENDURE program at WashU. Give it up for WashU, woo! Yeah, and so not too long ago, I was where you guys are sitting now in your seats at the SFN conference in Chicago, 2019, and I was applying to grad school at the time. So it's a really cool full circle moment for me to be able to be here and like talk with you guys today. So thank you so much to NIH and NINDS for this opportunity. So I'll give a brief recap of my trajectory as a neuroscience researcher. I did my undergrad at Vassar College in Poughkeepsie, New York, where I studied the role of steroid hormones and traumatic brain injury with a focus in transgender health. And I really, really enjoyed doing research. And so I applied to the ENDURE program at WashU. And I was able to do 2 summers there studying cannabinoid withdrawal. And the wonderful folks there at ENDURE helped me to apply and prepare and like be a successful graduate school applicant. And so I was accepted at my top choice, which was Emory University, where I am now studying things like sex differences and social behavior and lots of other things. So when I was in your shoes, I was making a lot of like big decisions, and because choosing somewhere where you're gonna live for the next 5 to 6 years is a really big commitment. And so I had these like giant charts in my dorm room that you see right there. And so I was just like planning and like scheming and weighing pros and cons. And like my walls were covered in these like giant like paper like charts. And it looked like a serial killer was like plotting their next move. But I was like really considering all these different factors. Some things that were like really important for me were having diversity in the city where I was going to be living. I knew that I wanted to have lots of faculty that had research aligned with the research that I was interested in. And then practical things like cost of living and career development were also super important. And at the end here, you'll notice that I have proximity and quality of aquarium. And so this seems really silly, but I actually like tweeted this. Yes, I absolutely will be choosing a PhD program based on which city has the best aquarium. And so I really wanted to make sure that I could envision myself being happy and having happiness in my life. And for me, aquariums equal happiness. And so, yeah, this is something I really thought about because I knew that when things got rough, something I could count on to elevate my mood was like going to aquariums. So I actually did visit some aquariums during my grad school interviews. Yeah, so I made the decision to move to Atlanta. I chose to attend Emory University because of its phenomenal research program, but also the Georgia Aquarium was a really big selling point. Because I spend hours just like looking at the whale sharks because they are awesome. So yeah, that's how I made my decision. So as you are preparing to apply to grad school, you may be asking yourself, like, what can I expect of the grad school experience? And I think something that is really common is to have really conflicting emotions. I think spending your time doing full-time research can be really stressful, but also incredibly rewarding and fulfilling. I think moving to a new city is obviously very exciting, but can be really anxiety-inducing. And then along with grad school, failure is something that is very prominent in my life and in many people's lives. Experience a lot of rejections from applications and failed experiments, but also with that comes success in terms of funded grants and publications and presentations. So I have another tweet here that kind of encapsulates that roller coaster ride that is grad school, where like 1 minute I'm ready to quit, and I'm like, well, I had a good run, I guess it's time to throw in the towel, here's my 2 weeks notice, crying emojis. But then the next minute, I'm like, this is the outfit that I'm gonna be wearing when I accept the Nobel Prize for my award-winning research. So it's really like all over the place in grad school. And then for me personally, I was very anxious and apprehensive before starting graduate school for a number of different reasons. So I am a Latinx student. I'm non-binary. I am first generation, a child of immigrants. And so I was really worried about being like the only one in my program and not really having community with which to interact with. And then also I had the misfortune of graduating in 2020. And so when I started grad school, it was all virtual and all remote. And so I was like, geez, it's gonna be really lonely when I get to grad school and I'm really scared. And so I took steps to try to build community. And the easiest way I knew how to do that was online. So I made this little blog called Non-Binary Neuro, where I just basically said, hi, I'm Yesenia, and I'm first gen, and I'm queer, and I'm non-binary, and I'm a neuroscientist. And my goal in doing this was really just to promote visibility and empower and support other people who may be in my shoes and like going through this really hard thing of starting grad school at a really weird time and like holding these marginalized identities. And so I started making little blog posts that are really silly like this. You can see it's like a cat in front of a computer screen and it just says real picture of me in virtual grad school. Because that's what it felt like, just like being alone in my apartment. And like silly things like this. But mainly also I just like tweet a lot. And some of the times these tweets really resonate with people, like this one, it says, the world is ending and I'm stressed about grad school. So embarrassing. And so this tweet really resonated with the folks at Vanderbilt University, and they actually made a whole DEI session about this tweet and navigating the academic pressures in the world as the world falls apart, which I thought was hilarious. So be careful what you tweet because someone might make a DEI session about it. But somehow all my ramblings on the internet have like translated to really tangible like outcomes. I now get the opportunity to speak at really cool places like this meeting, and also at different universities. And Marguerite had me on her podcast, which was super cool. So these opportunities combined with like the outreach that I do for various queer and Latin orgs have really taught me the importance of advocating for myself and for others, and to lift others up as I climb. And I think a key part of my success and like the confidence I have within myself is due to the fact that I have a really robust mentoring team. You can see Dr. Herzog there in the corner, who's a mentor at WashU. Thank you, Dr. H. Some of my mentors have these, a lot of these qualities in common, in that they advocate for me and are supportive and encouraging, give me honest feedback, and push me to be better and challenge myself and to grow. So I'm very thankful for how like nurturing they have been in my career. And then another part of grad school that has made me feel like be more successful is the fact that I seek out new experiences and build my network in all the ways that I can. And so this year I had the honor of being accepted to the summer program in Neuroscience Excellence and Success at the Marine Biological Laboratory, which meant I got to spend 3 weeks at Woods Hole, Massachusetts. And I gained some amazing new mentors. Dr. Gina Poe there will actually be giving a talk today at the conference, so you should check that out. Dr. Jerry Downs is there, and I was able to hone a lot of my professional development skills. And most importantly, I gained a cohort of peers, and we all come from similar backgrounds. And so it's been really great to like meet them and continue my friendships with them. Then along a similar vein, I think the thing that has made me most successful in grad school is my social support network. So we see pictured here at the top is my cohort in grad school, and we took this picture the first day of our second year. And so the first year we were all entirely virtual, and so this is the first time we had ever like all seen each other in person. And so we're like, oh my God, this is amazing, you guys exist and have bodies. So we took this picture to celebrate that. And then I have my besties pictured there, and my friends, Dr. Kayla Singleton, who was actually the one giving the talk when I was here in 2019. And so that's awesome. She's at Emory also, so that's amazing. So yeah, I think making time for the people who make you happy is incredibly important in grad school for your mental health. And then something that I think is incredibly rewarding about graduate school is the like ability to travel and like share your work with others and really expand your horizons. So earlier this year, I had the opportunity to travel to South Korea and present some of my neuroscience research there. And that was an amazing opportunity because I never thought I'd be able to go to South Korea by myself. And so I'm glad I had that opportunity. And also I'm really excited to see like where I will go next in my career and where in the world that will take me. So lastly, I'd like to say that I think grad school is a roller coaster of ups and downs. And so it's very important to take time to celebrate the wins, and importantly, like surround ourselves with people who celebrate you. And so recently I was awarded the HHMI Gilliam Fellowship. Thank you. And then in this picture, we see my bestie, Jirili Javier, who is actually seated over there. Oh, she was over there. She's recruiting for Emory, so you can talk to her over there. And she also won the fellowship. And so we threw ourselves a party, and we like got ourselves a cake from Publix and champagne and had a photo shoot, and really celebrated ourselves because we deserve it. Yeah. And so some of my key takeaways from this talk are to not be afraid to be your most authentic, colorful self, identify supportive mentors, and seek out new experiences and build community, and really learn to advocate for yourself and others, and take time to celebrate successes, both big and small. So with that, I'd like to say thank you to the NIH, NINDS, and Dr. Michelle Jones-London, and Marguerite Matthews for having me here. Thank you to the ENDURE program. I would not be where I am today without the support and mentorship I received from like Dr. H and all the amazing folks at WashU. Thank you to my lab and my PI, Dr. Shannon Gorley, as well as my mentors and my funding. So yeah, thank you.
What's up, everybody? I'm Celis. Yeah, like I'm pretty chill. Just defended last week, so I'm still getting used to the doctor thing. Like a lot of people out there, I'm a first-gen student. A lot of first-gen people, like our curiosity stem from our environment. A lot of y'all probably also heard the term like the countretto. So like I'm from the country and the ghetto at the same time. I grew up on a farm. It's a lot of like drugs in my community and stuff. So I was always curious like about drugs, as you can see like with the marijuana plant on there. I grew up really, really rural. So like I grew up on a farm. Yeah, I love sidewalks now. Other thing, I like really enjoy plants. So like when I was sick and little, my grandma used to boil pine straw teas. So I always wondered like, how is like homeopathic medicine, like pine straw, helping me get well better than Robitussin, which was nasty. And a lot of our curiosities stem from like unfortunate events. So like my first year of college, I lost my great grandma, which was like my ride or die. So, and she died from Alzheimer's disease. So that like kind of sparked that interest in the brain and neurosciences. I'm kind of obsessed with Harry Potter, so you'll see a lot of Harry Potter quotes in here. Bellatrix Lestrange taught us that like being obsessed can lead to madness, and a lot of grad students and undergrads, you feel that pressure to be successful, so you spend 15 hours in the lab. That was me as an undergrad and like first year grad student. But the pandemic taught me to take care of myself. I wasn't allowed to go in the lab. So it was like, okay, sit at home and read for a couple hours and then binge watch Netflix for the rest of the 14 hours of the day. Probably should even get some sleep, but that doesn't happen a lot. And then we have these things like theoretical expectations, like starting from graduate school, from undergrad to grad school. And then there's these realistic expectations that come from your PI. I think one thing that differentiated my graduate school experience and undergrad research experience was like understanding what my PI expected versus what I expected for myself. And then these theoretical expectations of like, we see Yesenia, who's like a god of Twitter, and like, oh, I want to be like that, but maybe that's just not my skill set. So realizing like what your boss demands of you and what you demand of yourself can like really go a long way and help you be more successful if you learn to use that as a superpower. I started research as a 19-year-old kid. I got hired to actually sweep the floors, not even do research. So my PI had just got hired. She was like, I need someone to order stuff, sweep the floors, put the chairs together. Last week for my defense, I told her like, you realize like I put every chair together and ordered your centrifuge, right? Been a long time. But then I started deviating like into the research, like she was giving me opportunities to do experiments. And that's where the neuro came in. So we used a lot of transgenic models, doing stereotactic surgery, did a lot of behavior. And then I even got to go into in vitro and did a lot of molecular stuff using imaging. Then we had all these key findings. And that's when like I started presenting research. Being first gen, I lacked a lot of confidence. I had a really bad K through 12 education. So my undergrad science GPA was like a 2.0. So getting into grad schools was pretty slim. But when I started presenting research, I was really, really good at conveying my science. So I started getting awards. And that's what instilled that confidence in me. But the biggest part is like I had people believing in me that I had that potential, despite sucking at the classroom, which I like still suck at the classroom. Like I have ADHD real bad. It just don't work out like that. So I worked with Dr. Ashpole, like I said, starting at 19. She was like, saw my potential, so I decided to stay with her as a graduate student. They say that's very bad. There are pros and cons to staying at the same school, working with the same PI that you did as an undergrad and graduate student. And as you can see, I finished my PhD in 3.5 years. And that was because I stayed. But like one of the big parts of that was deviating into a new field. So like since I had that 3 years of research experience in the lab, I didn't want to keep doing the same thing for another 3, 4, 5, 6 years. So I was like, so Black people have diabetes, hypertension, and strokes. Can I use the animals and start doing stroke research? And she was like, sure, but I can't help you. knowing that our institution did stroke research. So starting grad school was I'm diving into this whole other field. Paper under review, got to do a whole bunch of cool experiments. So I was building that, and that kind of led me to Dr. Matthews, where I was able to get an F31 for my actual research project. So applying for those awards really, really means something, and building your own projects, even if some of you decide to stay at that same school. If when you build those skills on top of skills, it actually becomes more translational to your future career. And next week, I'll be starting a postdoc position at Stanford. So, yeah. And once again, this is my first time moving out of Mississippi. So I'm real nervous. This interest came from my grandma dying from Alzheimer's disease. So I've always been interested in imaging and techniques. So I applied for the Stanford PRISM program, where they recruit people from all over the country, and you go and interview with professors. Luckily, I was able to convey that I had no experience in these techniques, but I have potential. Sell yourself, even if you don't know anything. That is the key point. So that's the realization of these opportunities, selling yourself, making people believe in you once you get that aspect of confidence. And I think the biggest aspect of me being successful and this whole PhD graduate student process is identifying good mentors. And a lot of panels, we talk about good mentors. We always talk about grad school or this one professor from undergrad, but in the top right is Caleb Smith. He was my high school history teacher. And we actually got so close, I call him Uncle Caleb. He was coming to my tennis games. Like I said, I had a pretty bad K through 12 education. He actually sat down one-on-one, helped me apply to college. My mom, if I handed her the laptop, she'll know where the power button is. So fast for all of that came for them. The Black woman beside him is Dr. Johnson. She was my English teacher in high school. So they're people that are affecting y'all's lives that you may not think about, because we become so far removed from that. I've been out of high school almost 10 years now. And sometimes we forget about those people, but the things that they taught me actually instilled in me. The third person up there, she was actually my gifted teacher in second grade. And she realized you have an attention span problem, but you really, really good at these things. And she actually got me in a gifted program. And then all these other people on there, I went through college, I started out as a psych major, math, history, classics, Latin. I studied abroad a lot. I couldn't decide what I wanted to do. So there's a lot of people up here that are not even in the sciences, but the things that they taught me were really translationable to the way that I think about science today, studying abroad in Italy and Poland and Greece. The way that I see the roads is different. The way that you go to New York, the way that the streets and the stores are set up, that's ancient Rome. And that applies for science as well. Learning old stuff translates to new stuff. And then I have all these other mentors that I've met, Marguerite. That's my first time seeing her in person was today. My NSP mentors, my first time seeing him in person, he came to my defense last week from BU. A lot of these people on here I still haven't seen in person. Jacob Hooker at Harvard, he's a neurochemist. And they know nothing about my research either. COVID really benefited me because I got on Twitter and I DM'd every single person that I could find. And I was like, I need help. I suck at scientific communication and writing. Can we meet? And that's kind of how I met a whole bunch of these people. And that's translated to my postdoc mentor now. But what are some ways you can surpass your peers and you can get your PhD done faster? At a conference last week, I was told that the way that URMs, that way that we change medicine, biomedical, PhD journeys is to do it better and to do it faster because there are less of us. So the ways that you can do that is a lot of reading, as we saw in Harry Potter. Hermione Granger, reading, she saved a lot of lives. Harry was absolutely garbage. I'm not a Harry fan. He just got the scar because his mom, that's love. That's different. And then Dumbledore, he had all this knowledge, but he also had all this pain he was holding in. And then all these opportunities that everyone keeps talking about, DSPAN, SREB, NSP Associates, Fellows, just ENDURE, Spines, NIH F31s, GRFPs. keep applying. I would say like I got an F31, but I applied for the GRFP twice. I got honorable mention, didn't come with no money. I applied for a Ford pre-doc, honorable mention again, no money. Then I applied for F31. Oh, that's a good score, but nothing. Let's reapply again. So like that's like 5 different things. So like continue to invest in yourself, because the more that you invest in yourself, others will invest in you, especially that potential. And then we gotta love Luna Lovegood. Man, be weird. Y'all see I'm chill. Just be genuine, be relatable, build your life on your differences. And I think like this panel will really show that. My Twitter's at the bottom. DM me. I'm around like all week, of course. And if you got a blink, it's a virtual business card. You can scan the QR code and we can like link that way. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So it's incredibly energizing seeing you all here today. And I gotta say, it's incredibly inspiring just being on this panel with these incredible people. So I've been hearing these talks and just feeling the excitement for science just coming back. So I'm gonna talk about some tips that I have for navigating the transition to graduate school. And first I'm gonna talk a little bit about me. So I'm gonna start by saying that my mom came from just outside Lima, Peru, and my dad is from Bridgeport, Connecticut. And now I'm just gonna kind of jump into sort of various parts of my background. So my undergraduate major was in chemical and biological engineering at Princeton. I then co-founded a company called Go Blue Labs before starting the PhD. And I actually thought as an undergraduate that academia was not for me, that I could never be a good graduate student. But through my time at Go Blue, I started becoming a little bit more curious about fundamental methodology questions. And this really inspired me to want to go into the PhD. So I did my PhD in the Interdepartmental Neuroscience Program at Yale. And now from that, I'm doing a postdoc in the Radiology and Biomedical Imaging Department, also at Yale, with a related professor. And throughout this process, actually, after I was doing the startup, and now as a postdoc, I've done some consulting for various EEG-based neuroscience companies. And what I'm interested in doing right now is building methods for more precise brain mapping. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about what I felt prepared me the best to be an effective graduate student and now a postdoc. And for me, I think it really comes down to experience in different contexts, and especially outside of academia, before I started grad school. And Dr. Jefferson touched upon this herself as well. She has been through various different industry contexts. I had that experience with a startup and doing some consulting. And as I said, that's what really made me realize I did want to do academic research. And I think that a lot of my friends who are in graduate school are sort of experiencing and exploring the idea of going into industry for the first time. And friends who have recently graduated have gone into industry, but hadn't really had as many experiences and were kind of uncertain what it would look like on the other side. And I think it really helps to just have experience both in the lab and in industry or in the government, as many different experiences as possible before taking the step to graduate school. And this also kind of prepared me to struggle a bit on my own, being in the startup environment. Just having some experience with trying to lead my own research, I think was very helpful. So another piece of advice I'd give you for preparing for graduate school is to try to get as organized as possible. Try to put together like a plan for how you want to keep track of your research. I use Trello to keep track of to-do lists. There are so many unknowns in graduate school. It's very ambiguous. It helps to put some structure onto that. So some expectations for what you might expect in your graduate school journey. We've heard some of this before. You will face unknowns and failure. There is so much ambiguity, as I mentioned before. You will be thinking about a problem that maybe very few other people in the whole world have ever thought about. That's a big unknown. And you're going to, I failed many, many times. You try one thing, you try another thing. It's going to happen. It's important to not equate that failure with not being good enough. You are absolutely good enough. And I have to remind myself that too every time I fail. Something I thought that was really helpful in my sort of engineering and computer science courses is they tell you to fail fast. And I think that that's also something that comes up in the startup environment. Fail fast. It's this idea, let's say you're building a computer program, you are absolutely not going to have like a perfectly running program the first time. You're going to need to debug it, but the idea is you get the thing to where it runs, and you encounter a problem, and then you fix that problem, and then there's going to be another problem, and you fix that problem. But it's this idea of being able to get rapidly to the problem, to the failure, and then get past it, I think is very important, just to embrace that as part and parcel of the academic journey. And I want to say this, emphasize this failure not being good enough kind of idea that some people take away from it every time they fail. That's absolutely not true. And this is sort of at the heart of what's called imposter syndrome. A lot of people experience this. It's this idea of like, am I good enough? I'm not doing as well as I expect, or I'm encountering these failures. I don't really belong here. And I want to say many, if not all people, experience some form of this. I've heard this from nearly all of my graduate school classmates. You do belong. Even if you experience these failures, even if you feel like you're not good enough, everyone has their own journey, and I'll talk about that a bit more. But despite all this talk about failure, which I think you will definitely get past, you will also succeed. You just need to give yourself time to, overcome those obstacles, to find your own path. And I want to say that a good advisor will give you some support to get to the successes, but also give you space to struggle on your own and grow on your own. They shouldn't be coming in and sort of correcting problems for you, because this is just something that you'll encounter throughout the rest of your career. No matter any career that you're in, if you're at the kind of cutting edge of something, you are definitely going to need to struggle on your own and make those discoveries for the first time by yourself. And kind of a final point here that was touched upon is that in a graduate school context and in a lot of these cutting edge areas, research, the sort of cutting edge work that you do, is much more important than your classwork. It's much more important than the exact grades that you get. It's important to get some really good training, but remember, we're moving past kind of a high school, college mindset where the GPA is everything. I didn't have a great GPA in undergrad, and I think that I'm having a fairly, at this point, I'm having a good research career, and I'm really excited about the work that I'm doing. And I have other colleagues that are somewhat like that as well. Just remember, classes should not hold you back. You should be focusing on your future and your discoveries. And a kind of final point to make for the graduate school environment is that a lot of learning actually happens outside of the lab. So you might want to attend socials, network at events like this, as was mentioned earlier. You'll learn a lot of this hidden curriculum that will help you succeed. You'll learn how your network can also help pull you forward. So here are just a few tips for finding a good mentor, because this comes up a lot. So something I would look out for, or look for, is a mentor that has happy trainees. And this usually includes people who feel like they have the freedom to do what they want to do, but also adequate support that if they need to talk to somebody, if they need to talk to their mentor, they feel like they can. I would look at the mentor's track record, see whether the students that they've advised go on to achieve positions that you would like, or that they seem to, or that their students have wanted. And ideally, you're looking for a mentor who is willing to adapt their mentorship style to what works for different types of mentees, not just one person who has their own record and is very kind of rigid, or their own style and is very rigid. So I'd also say look out for trainees who are repeatedly leaving early from a lab, or not finishing in a reasonable time, let's say taking 7 years or longer, in like a repeated kind of context. So those are a couple tips. Some secondary considerations, things that I think are actually not as important as the quality of the mentor, but once you find a good quality mentor, you might want to think about, is you might look for a mentor doing research that opens doors. So I think it's very important in a lot of neuroscience contexts to have kind of a good technical foundation. For me, at least, if you find somebody who's doing, for me, I was looking for somebody who was doing sort of cutting edge technical research in methods that I think could translate and across a lot of environments. And that can be, both, let's say, machine learning or like optogenetics, new experimental methods as well. So I would keep that in mind. There are also a few considerations about whether you would want to choose, a rising star compared to someone who's more established or well-known. There are excellent pros in both areas. A rising star can take you with them. They might be seen as like a really exciting new research avenue, but an established researcher might have a bigger network and might be able to connect you with more people. So kind of two different things to keep in mind. And I'll return to why it's worth it. Despite all the talk of failure, again, you will discover things that nobody else in the world knows. You'll have spent, days staying up late, collecting data or analyzing data or building a new computational tool. And you'll have that eureka moment, late at night, where you realize that there's something very important to the scientific community that has never been said before. And you realize that you have the evidence and you have the, way to communicate that that's an important thing that everyone should be considering. And I think that's incredibly one of the most rewarding parts of the journey. You also have the opportunity, going a bit over time, but you have the opportunity to work on topics that are really exciting to you. You get to choose what is kind of motivating and interesting to you, stuff that, like I said before, very few people are thinking about in the field, things that are very little discovered or there's very little research in that area. You also get the flexibility often to control what you're working on and when you're working on it. On a given day, you might spend the whole day just thinking about these problems, and then the next day you might want to go for a bike ride and sort of clear your mind. There's a lot of flexibility in this line of work. And then one of the most important things, I think, is that you get to have really exciting conversations with like-minded people, and that's a really great opportunity for a conference like this. And I would definitely urge you to broaden your network through these conferences or just cold reaching out to people like Celis did. People are so excited to connect with you in academia. I'll breeze through this. I want to emphasize what Yesenia said. I think it's paramount above everything else to nurture your health. Keep those hobbies, keep your friends and family close. Go reach out for therapy if that's something that, I think that's something that actually many graduate students benefit from. I think it's important to build a technical foundation, help your mentor help you. Consider your financial situation. I don't have enough time to go into this, but really think deeply about whether you're being compensated the way you should. I think that that's really important. Practice things that scare you. Go to all the practice talks that you can in a low-risk setting of the graduate environment. And just remember that you are doing fantastic. You need to give yourself time to follow your own path. And I'm sure you will succeed. All right. Thank you.
Everyone's talks so far have been amazing. Yeah. And I really love seeing just how personal everyone's journeys have been. So I'll go ahead and get started. My name is Corey White. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at Johns Hopkins. And my talk here is very esoteric to where I grew up in Georgia. So a life in the day in my scientific journey, I try to take a play off of an Outkast song. So as mentioned before, I come from Georgia, from both of my parents coming from the state, and grew up in Metro Atlanta. And this has really shaped the person that I am and given me like the rich community of people that have really made an impact on my life. So I think that's always important for everyone to really see how the people around them have shaped and brought value into their lives. So I have my mom's family on the left and a picture of my mom actually in the bottom right of that picture on the left, and then my dad's family on the right. And just again, how I came from a very large family. My mom is out of 10 siblings. My dad is out of 3, and that has brought like a plethora of people that have been teachers that have all done many, many things to bring me up. So my personal scientific journey started sort of without much thought at an early age. When speaking of family, like this comes from some of the hardships that have been faced. So my sister has been chronically ill pretty much my entire life. And for some of those summers of coming up, I would spend them actually at the Children's Inn at NIH. And within this time, I had a very happenstance of meetings where I met the Surgeon General of the time, Dr. David Satcher. And this is really the first time that I met, in this case, a Black physician scientist. And for this person to really take a lot of time to speak to me, to speak to my family, when didn't have to, like when had so many other things to do, and to talk to a child was really something that was very impactful. And I've taken that with me along my journey, and sort of is part of my edict to always want to give to future scientists, which I'm sure for many of you is the same, to give like on to the next generation. So going to school, I went to Mercer University, which is a pretty small liberal arts college in Macon, Georgia. It was there that I had my first research opportunity. So while I was there, bit of a nerd with organic chemistry, which was always a thing that people either loved or hated, and also had an affinity and love for the brain. And really, I didn't know much about how research is conducted. I didn't know how to get into doing research. And it was actually one of my professors there that pulled me to the side and said, hey, you should apply for some summer REU programs. And happened to apply and was able to get into a program where really built that foundation. And it was with Dr. Matthew Gentry at the University of Kentucky, where it really merged those initial interests there of being interested in brain and merging that with a love for structure and organic chemistry. And so there in that lab, it studies, he actually recently moved to the University of Florida, but at UK, the major focus was on Lafora disease, which is a disease where you have these bodies of carbohydrates or starch that build up in the brain and contribute to pathology, and ultimately in humans will result in death like early on in your early 20s or 30s. But in this space, I was able to not only build a foundation technically, but Dr. Gentry really saw all of these great aspects of writing, was getting me early exposures there, which is very, very key, like as a scientist. And hopefully all of you have had experiences to see the process of scientific writing, both for manuscripts and for grant writing. And even then, from this opportunity, I went under a RSF, an NSF REU under the first year, but this gave me my first opportunity for grant writing. I was able to work with Dr. Gentry to put in for an R01 diversity supplement, and he actually gave me a lot of the autonomy and ability to help him write that supplement, which has been very instrumental for future success that I had within graduate school. But moving to grad school, I was able to be admitted to the biochemistry, cellular molecular biology graduate program at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. And I chose this program really just of seeing a body of students that were really cohesive and were together, and where people shared, and where I would not have been the only Black student. I also kept track of how many people would have come in within a given class. But when I got here, I started to feel very, very isolated. This was also my first year of graduate school, fell in 2015. So this was the time of the Baltimore uprisings as well. So during this period, it was also a point in time where you had armed guards coming on campus. Being a Black student, you were viewed as a threat to the campus of potentially destroying property. So your ID was always in front of your face. The campus security shuttle wouldn't want to let you on. So extremely isolating. So this is a point where I had to identify within myself that like I needed the additional support. I needed to build a community of people that could really help me thrive. And I'm very fortunate for a lot of things that existed within the institution. Like BP ENDURE is one such body and network that you can build to help foster and help lift you up over time. But at Hopkins, I had so many different communities and was able to build even more beyond Hopkins. So I just want to share some of the people that made my graduate experience really, really great. So on the left-hand corner is a group of students that I was able to serve with called the Biomedical Scholars Association, which there we helped build up a lot of the programming for underrepresented students within the different graduate programs. Also helping develop a second look weekend for the institution. And a lot of those things from my time there has even grown and subsisted today. On the bottom left, different mentors within the Johns Hopkins Prep Program that are very, very committed to the next stages of underrepresented scientists. And of course, we have Dr. Matthews here for my NSP crew. My NSP crew is also in that top right-hand corner, as well as a body of postdocs at the time that are now early career faculty that have really, really shaped my path. So all of those people contributed greatly to the success that I was able to have within graduate school. From that time, I was able to actually earn, of course, the NSP fellowship, which brought me here to SFN for the first time by a picture taken by Dr. Matthews right there. Also, in my time in graduate school, I was able to earn F31 fellowship and eventually the D-SPAN award, which supports me today, as well as getting a couple of first author publications, one of which culminated into a cover image for the journal. So major takeaways I had for graduate school is finding a mentor that's invested in you as a whole entire human being, and that one mentor is never enough. Seek out those additional mentors, sponsors, and advocates, and build a community with the peers that pour back into you, because you will only sharpen each other. And no one knows it all, everyone needs help, because you don't really know what you don't know. And this has led me to a space that I am now. So I'm a postdoc in the lab of Deanna Williams, which has been a very, very great experience being with a lab where I feel like we all pour back into each other. Yeah, and I will take any questions with anyone, but for what I actually do in that lab, study how HIV changes metabolism within the brain. Yeah, but thank you all, and I'll join the rest of the panel.
These are not paid actors. They have not received any compensation for saying my name in their presentations or showing pictures of me. But I am so thankful for each of you sharing your stories, many of which I know are personal, but really important, I think, for these students, these future scientists, leaders, to hear them. And so thank you all for sharing. So one more round of applause. And so I know we're going a little over time. I hope our T32 and our graduate fair participants will bear with us. But please come to the microphones in the center. Also, if you are watching us online, please feel free to put your questions in the chat and we will ask them of our panelists. And if you're not able to get your question answered sort of live, please attack them afterwards and speak with them. I know they will be happy to share with you even after the conclusion of the program. Dr. Torres, why don't you open us up?
Yeah, I'm gonna break the ice. So I'm Lenny Torres. I'm a program director at the training office. So I wanna kudos to Margaret and Michelle and the open office for putting together such an amazing panel. I mean, this has been It's been a roller coaster of emotional and inspiration, and it's been amazing. So, Yesenia, Silas,
that's right,
Corey, and Stephanie, you guys are amazing. I mean, thank you, muchas gracias for sharing your stories. I mean, So the one thing I wished that I was one of them right now, being inspired by you, because I mean, this has been really amazing. So I just gonna say that future of neuroscience looks great in your hands. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys are gonna do in the future. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Mia. I'm also a BP ENDURE alumni. I'm a baby grad student right now, my second year. So a question I have for, I guess, any of you to answer is, one thing I struggle with most with my transition to graduate school is moving from the undergraduate mindset to becoming a graduate student researcher. And I was wondering if you had any tips on how to, like, I guess not to accelerate it, but how do you just start training your brain to start taking all this information you're reading, condensing it, and synthesizing it in a way where you can create questions for your project?
I think the biggest way is reading, of course, but they don't teach you how to read science. So I came up with a way, and afterwards I can give it to you. Like, the way that I read a paper and analyze a paper is very different from the ways that other people do it, and the ways that I consolidate this information. So like, I literally have like sheets of paper that like consolidate numerous papers about specific topics. And I think the biggest one is that like, to go through a graduate program, by the time you complete the PhD, whether that's 4 years or 7, you have to show some aspect of independence. Never go to your PI, and this is for everybody, say, what do you want me to do? The trick is to bring them 2 ideas and persuade them to like the one that you like the most. That gives them the idea that like, okay, they're in charge and they're making the final decision, but in reality, you went through the literature, you went through all this stuff and basically came up with like, okay, these are the 2 options, this is what's feasible, because in reality, like, you're in the lab every day, they're on Zoom, they're on faculty meetings, they're on committee meetings. Yeah, so bring the options always, like even with programs, 2 different drafts of a manuscript, like 1,500 words over what you were supposed to write, because they're gonna cut, yeah.
That's great advice. So along with that is being proactive. So with graduate school, it's very different than how it was with an undergraduate, where you had a very set schedule of your day-to-day. And part of success within graduate school and beyond, just as a scientist in general, is being able to organize your days, organize your thoughts. I like to plan out experiments weeks in advance, so I can say, I don't have time for a meeting with you at this time block because I have this experiment set to do, and I've had it set to do. And really just valuing your time to do the things you need to do to succeed.
I have 2 things to add very briefly. One, kind of builds off of being proactive, and it's start kind of playing with your own ideas in those first couple years. It's not always going to go well, and you're still learning. So of course, we can't expect it to. But that kind of starts to give you the confidence to build that independence on your own. A second tip is really in the transition from undergrad to grad, I would give yourself a couple years to start to feel more comfortable as an independent graduate student. This concern comes up, I think, again and again. People are like, I'm in my first year, I'm in my second year, I still don't know what I'm doing, I feel kind of lost, and it's super natural. Just sort of give yourself time to rest in that ambiguity and build up that independence.
I think it's also like really important to sort of like bolster your like confidence in your identity as a scientist. Like, I know like when I was an undergrad, I used to like read these papers and look at the authors and I'd be like, wow, these people are like gods. Like, I'll never be like them because they just like, create science. But that's not like the mindset you should have. Like, you should, as a grad student, you should think of yourself as like a producer of science and knowledge, and you're also going to be one of those people whose name's on the paper. And so just like really like humanizing scientists and like seeing yourself as its producer and creator of knowledge is like a really good mindset to have.
Got it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Giovanna from Temple University. Thank you all for your great talks. It was very inspiring. But I guess my question is more for Yesenia. I am also Latinx from Brazil and also queer, so those are my my main reasons to be, in a program that supports diversity. And I feel like, well, first of all, thank you for being loud about being a queer scientist. I feel like we don't really talk about that enough, about LGBT people also being a minority. So my question is, when choosing your graduate program, were there any resources out there in that kind of sense that you saw in Emory University and other universities? Or did you kind of just take like a leap of faith? Or was it kind of during like your visits that you gauged that? Talking more about that kind of experience and decision.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. It's really nice to hear, and I support you. But yeah, when I was making my decisions, like some things I really considered were like the city, and like I knew that there would be more resources for like queer students in bigger cities. So that's kind of why I chose Atlanta compared to like other like cities in like smaller towns. Emory has like resources for like transgender students in terms of like medical stuff, and so that was like a reason why I went there, because like they had like support and mental health for students like me. But yeah, talking to the students was definitely super important. Like getting the vibe and like making sure that people were like friendly and accepting was super important. So yeah, talking to students is like the number one way to really gauge that, and speaking to queer students about their experiences there.
And I also encourage you to ask our representatives, ask them about the resources that you think you need, whether it's being a queer student, whether it's being a student of color, being a student with a disability, whatever your needs are, you should ask them. And we have a lot of graduate student representatives here as well. So feel free to ask them about their experiences. And if you're not as comfortable doing it in this setting, maybe even take some time and ask them if they're able to speak with you after the conclusion of the fair. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hi, so I'm Justin Woods, undergrad at WashU. First of all, great talk, everyone. I really appreciated that each of you gave your own aspect on dealing with failure. This is something I really struggle with, as sure as a lot of other people, being a minority in a predominantly white space. And so I guess with it, for me personally, I feel like success has almost become like an expectation, and failure is really hyper-focused. So as high achieving individuals yourself, how do you balance between having really high expectations and appreciating your successes as they come?
Let's see, I think for me, I've had to do work with disassociating my worth from my work. So failure will come, and failure is natural. You have to fail to succeed and to get to the next point. So I think that is the main thing that has helped me. Even though you have these goals to be high achieving, you have to fail. To earn a grant or a fellowship, you will likely fail. So I got 2 fellowships in graduate school, but I think it took 8 or 9 applications to get to that point. So it's just realizing that you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg with other people's successes, and that there's so much more that's built you up to this point.
I think that's an excellent point. And I would add, I think it's really helpful to celebrate the things like submitting the grant, things like writing the paper, those things that you have done that you can honestly say, I took the step towards something. I'm not going to let kind of the external world dictate whether, that means that I'm a great person. I'm an awesome person for having even taken this step. So I think it's really important to celebrate at that level too.
Thank you.
And I will just also add, you don't have to have an award to be seen as excellent. You don't have to achieve all these things that would go on a resume in order to be excellent. I think many of them have already said, celebrate the small wins. Those again, applying, being here, you showed up, you were able to be here. And if you ask one question of somebody, maybe you're really shy, that is a win, that is something to be celebrated. You don't have to have accolades to be excellent. So really quick, we'll take all three, I'll let each three of you ask a question. I'll ask only one panelist to answer, and then again, attack them afterwards. And by attack, I mean bombard them with questions, not like physically attack.
Yeah,
just
don't hit me,
verbally.
please. I fight back.
Hi, my name is Natalie, and I am in my starting my second year in undergrad. And a lot of you guys talked about kind of, like finding confidence in yourself and like presenting the best version of yourself. And I have it because I'm like starting out in college. I find it hard to kind of like find that name for myself, having very little experience. And so I guess my question to you guys is, how did you find that, and how did you find that confidence to go to people and say, hey, this is who I am, and I know I don't know much, but like believe in like my like potential, I guess is my question.
I answer that one. I say like every opportunity is important. Like it doesn't matter what it is. I think a lot of things that differentiated me from like my friends that were like trying to go to medical school, because I started out on that route too, was like, I'm gonna study abroad in Italy, even though it has nothing to do with medicine. Like absolutely. I'm gonna volunteer to give tours on campus simply because that's just a way to communicate to people. So like everything small like that, anytime like your school sends out like emails about, there's this elementary school that's having a fall festival where you can go and scare little kids or like hand out candy corn to them. Like all those things like play a factor into it. Like take advantage of the small things, and then like you'll find like by the time like you're a senior, you have accumulated all these little bitty blocks, and it's kind of like Jenga, where you have a big tower of all these small things, because you don't get Jenga without the little bitty blocks. So just take advantage of all the small things that you can, and one day you'll literally wake up and just realize, I've done a lot of stuff.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll have to wrap it up. I'm so sorry. I apologize. As Dr. Jones-London makes her way, I want to thank each of you for being here. Lightning round question. Who's your favorite Harry Potter character?
Luna.
Harry's the lamest answer. Okay, I'll go last. It's too tough.
Y'all are not doing lightning round. We got fail well. Yes. All right. Thank you all. It was amazing. It's just so amazing to see all of you and your career progression. Thank you. We didn't do too bad. We're only 10 minutes late. If you know, historically, that's pretty good. Some of the senior PIs will agree. Hopefully you've gotten some lessons learned, some take homes. As Marguerite said, they will come to the side and you will be able to ask more in-depth questions, but we don't want to keep your future waiting. Mm-hmm. And that future is we call it the graduate program fair now, because not only do we have T32 programs, but we also have graduate programs that are just really dedicated to diversity and inclusion, and also some amazing science. They are here for you. Please go and talk to as many programs as you can. You may think that this program A is the only program for you, but I guarantee you that's not true. Use this opportunity in this small space to have those connections. And then also for the graduate programs, remember, come to the Diversity Fellows poster session where you can actually interact with these talented trainees over their science. And that's going to be tonight at 6:30. And then the other event I'm supposed to remind you of is the Diversity Neuroscience Reception, which is really a homecoming and is a great way to really see so many people in this space that are contributing to science that happen to be diverse. And this is just we're going to leave this up on the screen so you can see all of the programs that are represented today. It's number number 1 is right there. Baylor, raise your hand. That's number 1, and then just number throughout. But like I said, just really walk through and take advantage of this opportunity. Thank you all for attending. Thank you to all of our speakers. Thank you to Marguerite for moderating and then also co-producing this wonderful event. And thank you to the rest of the Open team, Anna, Jenny, and Lauren. Lauren's probably already in the D-SPAN room. And then thank you to Jennifer Adona. Is she here? Our meeting planner who put in a lot of work to make this amazing event. And then finally, our graduate program PIs. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And our ENDURE PIs, who I thanked in the beginning, but really without them pouring so much into you, you wouldn't be at this meeting. So I really want to acknowledge their hard work and what they were able to do during this pandemic to still get you here with scientific posters. Thank you, all the mentors. Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Jones-London.